Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Let's Play Papal Italy number 12. We left off at war with only the British as well as their entire colonial empire, and the Portuguese and their much smaller colonial empire. We have already occupied the entire British home islands, so we really don't have to do very much. The Portuguese are entirely occupied, and we're really just waiting for jingoism to come back up. We also began fabricating a claim against the Greeks, as well as we are in a terrible deficit. Let's go ahead and just raise rich tax. Rich people have had it far too easy for far too long in our country. So we'll go ahead and also upgrade our industry manually, just to get the ball rolling on that. We have all of the army techs we need to get until 1914. Navy, we kind of have left derelict. Culture, we could go ahead and get these final cultural techs, including mass politics to unlock fascism. We can probably wait and someone else will get fascism for us, though. There are a few more industrial techs we could get, which would be pretty decent. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter too much where we go, as now that our army is complete, everything else is just kind of on the side. Do we need to worry about our economy the most? Probably not, however, it is still nice to have. In fact, we will probably worry about our economy a bit and get electrical power generation. Is that really a necessity? No, but it's nice to have. Let's take a look at our, what am I looking at? Diplomatic. We are fabricating a claim against the Greeks. Eventually we'll make one against the Montenegrins, unless they actually join the Greeks in this coming war, which, you know, they very well may. The North Germans we're probably just going to leave alone. Kalat has gone bankrupt. And we can defend against gas attack, which is terrible news, because that means the British have the technology necessary to have gas attack. In fact, that might even mean that they do have gas attack already. I'll go ahead and take a look at the requirements to get gas defense. Are we going to be able to see that? No. Since we already have it, we can't see what goes into getting it. However, I'm not sure if it's that we need to have an enemy who has the capability of using gas attack, or as the technology needed to have the ability to use gas attack. It would make a lot more sense if they had to have gas attack themselves. So potentially that means that the British can use gas attack. So that essentially means that if all sides can use gas attack, essentially neither side can use the gas attack, as there's no real benefit. So that just means that is a sad state of affairs, where other countries in the world are probably going to be able to compete with our gas-using troops. It's not the end of the world, of course. It essentially just puts us back onto really the status quo from previously, or that we had previously had before gas attack even existed. It's just a little sad that we lose it. In fact, we're being awfully philosophical about this, in just the sense that we don't actually have any data to test. Let's go ahead and get some of this data. By attacking this British army, we will determine whether or not they actually do have gas defense and gas attack. Apparently they do have gas defense. So, yeah, sadly they have gas defense. We will not get any benefits from having gas attack. However, we have gas defense as well, so they won't get it either. We are kind of back at the, really just where we were before gas attack. Is that really that terrible? No, we do still have all of the army techs, whereas apparently they either don't, or we're just that great. So, there goes that army of theirs. And we'll go ahead and just bring our force back, and more or less just wait them out. It does look as though the occasional siege is occurring. That's right, we still have to deal with Spanish anarcho-liberals. And we may just leave a 30 stack in Cuba for really just the rest of time. Now, one key use of gas attack which I will demonstrate on this 15 stack, is going to be that gas attack is always used against rebels. Or at least it used to be. We'll see if it still is right now. I'll just zoom in for emphasis. Yep, gas attack is used. We had a -1 for terrain. Doesn't matter at all, though. Tank factories, and armor have all been researched. And unfortunately, we're in the middle of an election. However, that will be done on the 14th of January, so that doesn't matter too much. We'll bring our army to our capital, or we'll bring that army to our ships. And basically do a couple things right now. Alright, conservatives have won. Good work, conservatives. I usually love that about you. Not today, though. Today, we're going to need the terrifying prospect of either a planned economy or state capitalism. Now, unfortunately, that looks as though it would come with anti-military, and that is just too much. So we'll go for reactionaries. That really upset our people. What can we give them to mollify them? Good pensions will hopefully do it. And we'll hold new elections so they won't feel too upset. That lowered our militancy pretty significantly. Let's go ahead and see what areas have the most factories. Sadly, they have all the factories they can possibly have. Now, this furniture factory doesn't employ anybody. We will close it and destroy it. We'll leave Lombardia alone, although it does have an automobile factory. Alright, it doesn't matter too much. We will just begin producing tank factories and aeroplane factories. We need to get a significant portion of the world's tanks and airplanes produced in our lands. That will also include automobiles and electric gear and all sorts of other things. We'll just start filling out the countryside with all of these high-end factories, telephones, airplanes. It'll be an expensive prospect, but once it's done, we will dominate the world in really every way. Alright, so that's a good few territories that will have all of these necessary factories. We'll go ahead and upgrade all of the factories that haven't been upgraded just yet. And with all of that said and done, we will be in a pretty nice spot to just sort of move on with everything. These two engineers will go. And form these armies back up to full strength. At this point, doesn't really matter all that much getting our armies all up to full strength, as we're really nearing the end of the period where we're actually going to be fighting wars against our neighbors. Knock on wood real quick, because let's be honest, we're probably going to still be fighting our neighbors for quite some time. We're probably going to be fighting them. We will send these cavalry groups to these African regiments, and also engineers, because we forgot to add those, and just fill out these whole armies with all of the various units needed. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those areas are undermanned already, which is grotesque and just horrifically annoying. Why? Oh well. We can't really worry about that too much. That is just part of the cycle of life. Armies are created and just immediately show up undermanned. Didn't mean to send two engineers there. That means this engineer needs to go down there. Let's see, we need a hussar and an artillery. We don't have any artillery, so that's 4 artillery and an infantry and an engineer. Let's just rebuild that. Build army. 4 artillery and an engineer. Oh, and an infantry. Now we could keep building up our armies. We do have enough, really just everything to do that. And if we don't, we're almost certainly going to regret it later on. I was really not going to do it, but I can't really justify not upgrading our forces. Or, you know, not building the armies. Actually, I can. If we wait 1 year to build these armies, then we'll have a few tank factories up and we can just build tanks. And that would really take care of all of the issues. So we'll just do that instead. We'll get everyone to be state capitalists. Let's take a look. Alright. And we'll just continue going forward. We will assert our influence in the Empire of Mexico, which is doing fairly well, although having had a bit of its country bitten off by the United States. And let's see, we are nearly done with our war goal against the Greeks. And then we won't need to worry about getting troops from this Greek area into the rest of our European holdings because they will connect. Speaking of things we need to worry about, however, it looks as though there are rebels popping up in British South Africa and just generally throughout. Now, these are the first rebels we've seen in Britain. Is this the sign of something greater about to happen? Are the British about to fall? Who's to say? I certainly hope so, because if they get a massive rebellion, we will be able to use that as an excuse to just make peace where we're at right now, and they will break apart to an extent. Obviously, I'm not expecting the complete collapse of the British Empire. However, they will lose quite a bit, and really that's good enough for our purposes. We have a few armies on the border of Greece. We'll march a couple down as well, or a couple reinforcements down as well. Not that it's going to be entirely, or, well, it won't really matter all that much. Now I'm noticing that we are lagging somewhat, which is a bit odd. Hopefully that isn't going to show up in the recording. I just realized that that is a legitimate concern that may happen. So we may want to slow the game down a bit to avoid that. We have conquest against Greece, declare war, conquest, goo. We'll switch to the diplomatic map mode, just so that we'll be able to see pretty much instantly if it does turn out that the Montenegrins, yeah, probably. Yeah, Montenegrins. We'll see if the Montenegrins actually support their allies, or what ends up happening. And they did. Interestingly enough, Montenegro seems to be completely content to go to war with us. So, at any rate, our armies now occupy all of Greece, or, well, they're in the process of doing so, as well as all of Montenegro. Now, I said that a little early, but ew, okay. So, that could have been better. Unfortunately, since we have a communist neighbor to the north, that means our people are more likely to rebel for communism. Model colony for us, hooray! I feel really terrible, I almost thought it was for Mexico for a second there. At any rate, doesn't matter too much. Our great non-Mexican empire is doing quite well, and we have a model colony, which is great news. We'll start turning some of our armies onto autonomous rebel suppression. And since we do have gas attack right now, it doesn't really matter all that much what they do, as these rebels are going to be destroyed mercilessly and without quarter. Wow, there's a lot in a few of these territories, and our African armies appear to be coming together right now, or at least they would be, if not for all of those mass uprisings. So we'll go ahead and just turn all of our armies in Africa against the rebellion. Luckily, it appears as though a lot of our armies in Africa aren't actually going to any rally points, which in any other context would have upset me quite a bit. However, since this keeps them from dying to rebels, I can't actually justify being upset at them, or just upset in general about this. So, I mean, yeah, that's technically winning for us. I will count that as a plus for our country, even though it's kind of just a mediocre thing. It would be like if your house burnt down and then you realized that it was about to be foreclosed on. So it's not good, but I mean, you can't really say you lost anything, because I guess you didn't really have it to begin with. Kind of just a shrug of the shoulders moment. Or, no, I mean, I guess you still you still lose your house in that situation, so it's not the same at all. But I guess we still didn't get the armies. I guess it would be... You know, I'm not going to bother too much about a metaphor for that. Or, you know, since we're just kind of waiting for jingoism, let's actually do that. Let's bother about a metaphor for that. So, I mean, those armies, I wasn't really waiting for them or expecting them. I didn't really realize that we had them or would have had them. So, let's think about that. So, it would have been like a little fortune that we would have had, but just didn't notice. And then, I mean, it's still technically a benefit for us, because we do still have the troops. We just have to deal with it a little bit more. And I guess it would have been a bad thing, except that it is a benefit. I mean, it would have been a bad thing if not for the rebellions, and the rebellions kind of revealed it. So I guess if your car broke down, and while you searched through the glove box, you found, I don't know, an old wallet. Just, wow, this is such a terrible metaphor. I'm sorry I spent so much time just kind of making it up. But, I mean, yeah, this massive rebellion, which is costing the lives of hundreds of thousands of our African subjects, is vaguely like your car breaking down and you finding some money in the glove box. Because now we have all these additional armies that we don't need to just sort of worry about. Or, well, we do have to worry about it. We still have to, like, pawn through it a bit and just put the armies together. But it's still kind of a good thing in the general sense. I'm just gonna stop now. Well, yeah. So my car broke down today. Off-topic thing entirely. I didn't find any money in the glove box, so that would have been nice, though. Would have been a pretty swell day if I had found some money in the glove box after doing that. Luckily, my car broke down when I had just finished doing the very last thing that I needed to do that day. So that is really awesome, and I managed to get the parts to basically put it back together. And it is running now, which is great news because I do have a class on Friday. Monday is also a holiday, so, you know, that's pretty swell, just in its own sense. At least it's a holiday in America. Sorry if you don't get that holiday, but it's pretty swell for me. At any rate, though, so yeah, took care of that. That's all good. Let's see. Our capitalists, despite being taxed pretty heavily, are still taking care of building railroads throughout our country. It looks as though we could actually build the last level of railroad, which is why that's only at 48% and not whatever it will end up being. Let's see. So we can peace out with the Ottomans. Can we add a war goal against Montenegro? No. Just no. It won't happen. What a pity. Well, let's see. Who else can we declare war against or justify war against? We can liberate a country from the French. I'm not really sure who we can liberate from the French. Let's find out who we can liberate from the French. Oh, and we could also go to war against the North Germans to free some people from them. We also could go ahead and add to our sphere of influence, or just generally wreck for no reason Bavaria and all of these other areas. So that's potentially a thing worth doing. We might want to just go ahead and accept peace with the United Kingdom at this point, seeing as nothing else is really happening. And that doesn't it won't really stop us from doing anything, because we will hopefully just get another war goal against them. We'll go ahead and get social alienation to get more people into the colonies. Not that that's really been a concerning thing. Okay, they attacked us. Do we have any dig-in bonuses? Ooh, we get +5 dig-in bonus, but our leader apparently is so bad he's actively a detriment to our campaign. Well, it's about time we pick up another army and bring that over into Ireland. Hopefully these forces manage to hold out and not just die. Oh, no leader. Well, that explains a bit. We'll get it so that both of these things are in view. Vanguard Party, so more communists. That's swell. We just had them rise up against us. Good to know that they're going to be more powerful, not less. At any rate, our ships are coming full steam towards the area. Hopefully they will reinforce. Our poor army is doing so poorly. We lost 20,000 men in that battle alone. This guy, solidly better than having no one in charge of the army. Good work, guy. Giacomo. Alright, so 18,000 men lost. Not great. 30,000 British men. We're actually going to keep this army back, and we'll just drop them off in the home country. Probably just in Africa. Come on, guys, load up. Vacuum tubes. Cool. We are... That's basically the most modern technology in the world, vacuum tubes. We are practically at the forefront of it. Really, how far can human progress go beyond vacuum tubes? Let's see, we may as well start carting these groups off to the capital, since we now have the option to do so, over that Greek-occupied territory. New government is in control, new election is in effect. And luckily we are back to the Conservative Party we like, which is good. Very good news. Are we at a point where we can add Spain to our sphere of influence? We are. We're still not going to do that, though. Diplomatically, it looks as though we're already done with our truce against the Spanish. So let's actually go ahead and... Oh, we're already justifying against the French. Well, 60 days doesn't matter. I'm really tempted to actually propose peace with the British and the Portuguese and just wait the 5 years, because it doesn't look as though we're actually saving any time by waiting as long as we are without really achieving anything and just kind of leaving everything up in the air how we are. So worst case, with about 10 years left in the game, no, that's not very much time at all. Well, I'm not going to do anything different. We're going to stay the course. That's the plan. We will stay the course. The course has led us well so far. Maybe things will go poorly. Maybe they won't. I'm going to hope for they won't. But they still may. Our armies will start to flow back against the Spanish as we're going to have quite a bit of warring to do against them. We'll get people more interventionist, because interventionism is the best thing to be. And I just realized we were fabricating on the French, not the Spanish. So armies, stop, turn around. We're going to war against the French to free some group of people who are probably somewhat oppressed, perhaps. All these armies will just kind of bring to the front. We'll just bring everybody. Why not? That's 10 units, slightly less than 300,000 men, because they aren't actually fully enforced. So we can say, well, we'll just assume it's 270,000 men. And the French aren't really as strong as they've been. They're actually in a much weaker position now, as is, you know, kind of what becomes of a state that's constantly attacked for about 30 years and getting lands just stripped from them every war. So, you know, they didn't do so badly, but they're definitely not going to be a superpower for very much longer. And it's actually a very great testament to the French that they are still a great power today, at this point. In the game, at least. And let's go ahead and just split off this group to get a full functional army going, and we'll just send this up to the front too. The Channel Islands are being sieged by the British. Nah, they earned it. They can have those back. We don't really need to keep armies on every single Greek province. I realize, not changing that. And we'll go ahead and get an acquire state Casus Belli against the Spanish. It takes twice as long, however, we've clearly had enough trouble with jingoism. And, yeah, I guess India will be freed. It costs 2 war scores, so... I mean, that's literally a single province. Hyderabad probably wasn't going to be very much more. We'll just send all of our troops 1 province into France, and that'll probably be enough to change their minds about actually fighting us off. So we'll just flow on in a bit. Just 1 province deep for all of the armies involved. Now, some are going 2 provinces, that's just because of overflow, not because I actually want to go any further. So we'll just occupy this line of French territories, and they will release India. They're actually attacking us. Do they have gas defense? Is going to be the question of the day. The answer is no. A resounding no. The French do not have defense against gas attack. And, yeah. So take that, French armies. We're not going to lose any men compared to you from this point onward. So they lost 51,000 men to our something like 16,000. We'll go ahead and just bring our forces to bear against them. And keep intervening immediately in colonial events. And they do keep attacking us, though. You have to hand it to them. They are determined to try, despite the fact that it isn't really working out for them. Now, at this point, we're just kind of being cruel by leaving these armies fighting, and we don't really want anything else from the French than just India acquiring all states with core provinces. So we'll go ahead and proceed. India is now a thing. They have cores on just all of that. And they're in our sphere, so cool. They're also a primitive nation, but, you know, yeah, that's fair. All of these armies, let's just start bringing to the front against Spain. We will just flood this frontier with so many men that when the war does break out, they won't really stand any chance whatsoever. That is how you assure a positive resolution to a war. So we'll go ahead and just get all of that settled. We might not even make peace with the Portuguese by the time that's done, so we'll just also be able to march our Portuguese armies over. I just realized, do any of these armies have orders to go into our territory then back out? It doesn't look like they do, so that's good. We'll probably take a few thousand men worth of attrition. Probably about 10,000 men of attrition crossing the Pyrenees. Which is kind of terrible. Let's go ahead and be really protectionist. It kind of really pisses off the people who support free trade. But, you know, we have gas attack. Who really cares? It doesn't matter. I know this is exactly the thing that I was saying I really wanted to avoid, where we kind of just become blasé to all of the horrors of empire. But, I mean, yeah, let's be honest. At this point, people just become jingoist. Come on, stop being such a problem. We just need a few more wars, and we will be such a glorious empire that it won't even matter. We could just accept the British peace offer. At this point, how much is it even for? 65%. That's not too terrible. And we did just make peace with the French, which means we can just go to war with them again later on, and also go to war with the British soon thereafter, kind of taking care of two birds with one stone. Now, this is kind of us giving up in the face of adversity, or, well, not really. You know what? No, it does kind of feel like it, though. We'll still do it. Alright, that takes care of a good portion of the British colonial areas in North Africa. Not all of them, though. They do still have some grotesque clingings on going on just throughout and about their areas. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, but we will be able to overcome. We won't make peace with the Portuguese, though. I'm sure we'll get one additional jingoism event before the end of the game. Same with Montenegro, because, come on, it's so little to ask for. We'll let everyone who's socialist become conscious, because everyone's already fully conscious anyway, so consciousness-giving events don't really affect us in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to open up my window really quickly. Hopefully that wasn't just brutally loud. And let's see. More events where we just intervene immediately to prevent horrible disasters that would just wreck our people for no reason. And once again, we wait. So we'll be able to go to war or justify a war against the Ottomans fairly soon. Hopefully they still have a colonial territory. Ottoman Hail will be our next target, as well as probably Transjordan. And when those are done, we'll go to war or justify a war against Egypt. I don't think they have any colonial provinces left over, which is sad. So we'll have to go to war for a state, which will take extra time to fabricate. Which means our random pointless struggles against the North Germans will have to wait. And, you know, let's go ahead and see if we can't build any tanks. We'll attempt to build a group of, let's just build 20 tanks. And we will disperse them at random throughout the countryside. This army still in England will pull back. It looked like there was a 28 stack of some sort of rebels. Who's to say what they are? Irish nationalists! Fun. Hopefully Ireland becomes free as a result of our efforts. Am I really going to hope for that? Nah, it might not happen. Probably won't happen. But it's still a nice thought. Social alienation. Take that, people who want to be part of the social structure without fitting into our norms. An international crisis for Siamese Pegu, where Great Britain... Oh wait, no, I guess either Siam or Laos, or... is that it? Who knows? Or Luan... well, whatever. At any rate, Burma... something happened with Burma. Honestly, I can't really tell what is different. I guess Cambodia, is that new? No, it would be in the British sphere of influence, so what's in the British sphere of influence in that area? If it's new. Is Burma new? I don't think so. Oh well. At any rate, Bavaria was forced to admit the hegemony of the North German Confederation. Not that that stopped them from being a great power or anything, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Austria is a secondary power, struggling and maybe even succeeding at becoming a first-rate country again. Hey, and look at that jingoism. Joke's on us for making peace with the British. Whatever. What? Okay, never mind. I thought that was a 100% war goal, not a 100% war score that we already have. So what are we after still? Portuguese Gambia. That's gotta go. So let's take it. Add war goal. Apparently they're communist. I remember noticing that last time. Portuguese Gambia. We'll add that. Before we do anything else, let's also add to annex Montenegro. Cool. No, Montenegro, we're not going to give you a white peace. And let's see. 13th, so on the 14th we'll see. We can still add war goals. So we're still going to add war goals. Place in the sun. Portuguese Bombay, so that's Kiao. Or there's Sunday Islands. Joa, Gioa, whatever. We're going after it. It's gonna be ours. We'll figure out what it's called later. We'll also go ahead and just propose peace. Annexing Montenegro. Take that, Montenegro. You are now part of our country. And then we annex Greece as well. That is pretty nice. And realistically, if we just get rid of Serbian territories, even if we're forced to end our wars of conquest here, which we won't, we'll still take a bit more, but if we were forced to, we would still be in a pretty nice space, all things considered. We're out of jingoism, so we'll go ahead and accept our own demands, removing the Portuguese entirely from Africa. And look at that, we're actually at peace again. That's something else. Look at all these states we can make. Let's go ahead and look at the civilization level. Does that change? There we go. So we'll just turn all these places into states. Why did that take us to that screen? I don't know. Create state. Create state. And we'll just keep creating states. If we had slavery, we could turn some of them into slave states, but that wouldn't really do anything because slaves aren't a pop group that expands. So it's just kind of an effort and futility to do that, unless you're the United States, in which case you can provoke the Civil War. There we go, look at all these new fancy states that we've got all throughout Africa, just because why not? Our people are horrifically militant, so let's actually go ahead and try to bring that down a bit. I'm not sure what upset them so much in those last few moments. And weirdly enough, we are no longer the top industrial power in the world. I'm assuming America has surpassed us. They have. Gross. At any rate, new elections will be held pretty much immediately. This is not a group of 12 tanks, which saddens me greatly on a profound level. Profound apparently is my recent word of the day for the last few months of my life, and I've been using it quite liberally. War justification, 7 days till we're at war with Spain. And I wonder if our troops will stop being black flagged or just exiled the moment we go to war with the Spanish. We'll find out the moment we go to war with the Spanish. Acquire state, Granada, go. So let's just kind of march them into Spanish lands and see if that does anything. Worst case, we just march them all the way back. I feel like Victoria 2 is really forgiving about that sort of thing. And it's just EU4 where you really can't do that sort of nonsense. Which is sad, because that sort of nonsense is the best sort of nonsense. Admittedly, it's just completely, totally broken and just awful, but it's great for that. It makes you feel like you're winning even when you shouldn't be. And that's really the best type of winning. As you get to also just sort of, well, nah, I mean, there's better sorts of winning, but it's definitely the most tongue-in-cheek kind. And I do kind of prefer that type. At any rate, our armies just split into Spain. Will that be forgiving? It is cool, and the Spanish inadvertently attacked us just because we sent exiled troops from a country we don't have military access through into their lands and attacked them. Which means, next time we peace out with France, we'll just leave our armies in France. And we'll be able to just roll into the United Kingdom with our exiled troops from France. And they won't be able to do anything at all about that. Which is as broken as it is awesome, and immediately makes me realize why that sort of thing isn't allowed in EU4. And honestly, now that I'm realizing just how broken and exploitable it is, I kind of support their decision to take it out of the game. Obviously, when it works for us in little serendipitous moments like it just did, I don't really see the problem. But when people actually start planning around like all sorts of nonsense exploits, and I'm not going to call it an exploit, they left that in the game, if not intentionally, then as an oversight. And oversights are as close as I need to get for working as designed, as we are not guilty for using that. We're essentially morally innocent, I would say. I mean, it's a bold claim, and I'm only saying it because we did the thing, but it still counts. It still should count. And we will send our armies just after the Spanish. And I'll be surprised if they fight us for more than a few more. Oh, hey, they actually want peace with us already. And if we accept this peace deal, we will get pretty much everything that we need or want from the Spanish. There's really no reason at all for us to delay. However, there's also no reason at all for us to make peace with them, because we just want to have all of the Mediterranean coast by the end of the campaign. Now, that means we could just stay at war with them until we get another jingoism event, and then, just because we could, and because I'm a little bit upset that we couldn't get it in the last war, we could also just add Andalusia. Just take that from them. It'll push us a little bit further into the edge, out of the edge of the Mediterranean, and into the Atlantic, which, for any purists, Mediterranean purists out there, would mean that we managed to succeed fully 100%. I mean, who's to say that the Mediterranean ends at Gibraltar? We could have it extend through Cadiz and that other province, and it would be just as well. So, no, Spain, we won't make peace. Hey, look at that jingoism, cool. I mean, I wish it would have happened when we were at war with more than one country, but whatever. So 45% war score. How much is Andalusia worth? War goal, acquire state, Andalusia, 56. Oh, that's really upsetting. Well, joke's on us, isn't it? Joke is on us. What about Vescania? Acquire state, Vescania, Aragon, much more. Maybe we can liberate a country, the Philippines. 30% war score to liberate the entire Philippines. Alright, cool. Take that. I like how we're called king. I just realized we're addressed as king, despite being pope. Then again, I believe we were also addressed as king when we were the papal state, so... I mean, I guess we've always just been left wanting for flavor text, but... who cares? It's not that big of a deal. And then on the 8th of May, we will make peace with the Spanish, stripping them of the Philippines, which is pretty much the last territory they have in their empire. And there we go. We'll turn off our war goal for a bit. Look at that! I mean, it looks a little hideous, but, I mean, it's still nice. We now can move troops from Africa into Italy. And yeah, that's nice. I like that. I mean, it's kind of hideous because it's not complete yet. And, I mean, it's just kind of hideous in a general sense. But it's also really nice. In just the sense that it's kind of what we've been working... No, it is what we've been working for a while. And it's nice that we have that now. So, yeah, who cares if it's horrifically ugly? It's our horrifically ugly thing. Yeah. So we're just going to store all of these armies in France, probably give the French some terrible attrition while they're trying to do stuff and keep their country from falling apart. Doesn't really matter to us, though. We'll go ahead and add the Spanish to our sphere of influence because they're there and we can add them. And Egypt, let's just ignore. I probably should have been fabricating a claim on the Ottomans and not just attacking the Spanish. That was a little bit dumb on my part and probably wasted some very valuable time of ours. which really I don't have any excuse for. I kind of just sort of bungled the timing bit. Doesn't matter too much. We'll go ahead and just bring some armies about to face the Ottomans. They'll get there far before the war is actually anywhere near ready to start. That doesn't matter too much. It looks as though some of our tanks are actually being produced and ready to go. And we'll just pile up our forces on the border of the Ottomans. And yeah, we're getting our first tanks ready. So we'll go shovel them over. I'm going to actually take a moment to look at them and appreciate how awesome it is that we have tanks. So yeah, look at that. That is amazing. That is so cool. I'm so happy we have tanks. I'm actually really, really happy that we have tanks. Like, I mean, a lot. Probably too much. Probably to an extent that I shouldn't be sharing with the entire internet. But it's awesome. I mean, it's probably not going to actually do very much for us in a real sense, but it's just a really nice thing to have. I mean, come on guys, we've got tanks. Just take a moment and appreciate that with me. We're also going to just shovel full worker capacity into these tank and automobile factories and just everything. In fact, I might even take a moment and just shut down this factory just to flood the other factories with tanks. Or the tank factory with people. Just go, everyone go from the closed winery to the tank factory. We'll also close the, clothes factory. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have anything like all of the resources we need to make tanks. It doesn't matter to me, though. We're still trying. We're still putting in the effort. Admittedly, that did also completely stop the expansion of that clothes factory. That's really, at that point, just collateral damage, and it doesn't matter enough to really be worth complaining about. So we now have this army, 2 armies with tanks in them as well as cavalry, because why not? We're still in that era. And we'll just keep shoveling tanks over. I mean, we've got them, we'll use them. Tanks, more tanks, just tanks everywhere. We're going to keep lazily slapping them onto all of the groups that aren't fully formed yet, and deal with the consequences of that later. If there are even going to be consequences of that later. Who's to even say? We can also just kind of rove all of these exiled troops around the world, and I'm realizing just how horrifically gamey that is. So yeah, good thing EU4. I kind of disliked that it was so absurd with its exiled troops rulings, or whatever you want to call them. It was a bit absurd with how it handles exiled troops, we'll say. Starting to realize that if you don't be that absurd and ridiculous with how you handle exiled troops, people are just going to terribly abuse it. I'm saying that because here I am terribly abusing it. And I don't even mind. We're going to fabricate a war against Denmark at some point as an excuse to take Danish Guiana. And honestly, I'm just going to use all of our exiled troops kind of roving about France. I know that it's kind of gamey, and that I've been trying to avoid doing such gamey things this campaign, but I mean, come on, it's Denmark. It doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, we could always just ship troops over, which obviously is the thing that we should do, but I mean, we're not going to do that. It would just take too much of a hassle, not really for any benefit. So yeah, that's just not going to happen. We'll use the exiled troops, unless I don't get to it by the start of the next session, which, obviously it's up in the air if I will make it that far or not. So if there's like significant backlash against me using these roughly 2,700 men, or no, 270,000 men, to just sort of rush Denmark and force them to capitulate, then we won't do it. But I mean, honestly, it's a single province that we're going after in Africa, and it's a bit absurd that they would be so defensive about it. But I guess we also can't get to it, so who's to say? Alright, let's go to war. Declare war. Place in the sun. It looks like we can actually go after Syria or Lebanon, so let's just go after Lebanon. That'll push our borders up through the Mediterranean a little bit more, and that is ultimately our legitimate goal in this game. And we'll just rush these troops around and about. We'll probably end up taking over these Serbian territories from the Ottoman Empire, provided we have enough jingoism to actually do that. Also, I should probably find where at least one of our navies is and bring it around to a point that's actually useful for this sort of thing. Which, yeah, that's actually probably going to be a very important step right now. So this group, still kind of in Cuba, will just sort of abandon that one army to its fate with the, you know, native inhabitants, or locals, or whatever, the indigenous population. Not that, you know, Spanish colonials are really an indigenous population, but I mean, they're more indigenous than us. We showed up a few years back, so indigenous enough. We're also just going to pile our dreadnoughts into the Ottoman Navy, and apparently that just wrecked them immediately, because dreadnoughts are the most awesome thing in the world. They also did have battleship escorts, so we escorted our capital ships with other different capital ships. Naval combat theorists or historians or people who just kind of like the thing, don't worry, that's clearly a legitimate strategy. Then again, I imagine if you just have enough capital ships, it doesn't really matter how many screening forces you have. I mean, in a real sense. At any rate, vaguely philosophical questions about the role of screening ships aside, our forces are moving throughout the Ottoman countryside at kind of an appalling rate, which is pretty nice if you're not them. We are taking atrocious casualties in this area. We have gas attack, though. They just have a really nice general. However, they are starting to break and retreat. 32,000 men. A bit of a... well, actually quite a bit of losses. Overall, though, we're still marching forward. We're going to just bring our armies to collapse on that one Ottoman group. I don't imagine they'll be quite so lucky as the last one, and no, they are just not anywhere near as lucky as the last one. The Battle of Jerusalem is going very much in our favor. However, most of their forces are down in Asia, and that kind of region in general. So we'll just keep rolling our troops around the area. And that should take care of everything. I wonder if we can add a war goal against the Ottomans. We also forgot to add to justify a war against Egypt. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's see, that'll only push us back a few, well, it'll push us back a bit, but not so very much. Not enough that it's really concerning. We are starting to be noticeably fast and loose with this campaign. I mean, I'm noticing it, and I'm the one being fast and loose with the campaign. So it is an issue that I am aware of, but, I mean, you know, come on. We're so close to the end, we just have so little left. Unfortunately, we don't have the jingoism to add more war goals against the Ottomans. That's pretty okay, though. Hopefully... well, no, I mean, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say hopefully we don't get the event until we're also at war with Egypt, but I would rather we just get 2 events for jingoism and, you know, solve the issue that way. I mean, perhaps that's not very realistic, but it's still worth hoping for. Especially worth hoping for against hoping that something kind of worse happens to us. So, yeah, who knows. We'll just keep moving forward. And I'm actually kind of surprised that Romania hasn't declared for their cores. Romanian pan-nationalists are rising up. Although we're going to just wreck them, so it's not like they're going to matter very much. Who knows, maybe they will actually become a significant threat and power in the area. Or maybe they won't. What are these? Anarcho-liberals? Well, good luck, anarcho-liberals. And our forces continue to move around and about. and transfer over into Ottoman Anatolia, or Anatolia. I'm really not convinced that either is the proper pronunciation. I remember being incredibly surprised listening to, and I did this, back when the riots and whatnot in Ukraine before the revolution occurred, where there was a lot of rebellion in places like Donetsk, where people were waltzing through the streets, chanting Ukraini, or like Ukarane, and Russia. And it's just interesting to notice that even countries like Russia and Ukraine, which honestly I never even considered their pronunciation because you hear it so often, oh, Russia, oh, Ukraine. You never really think that people would be chanting down the street, screaming, you know, Russia, Ukarane. It's just interesting. It feels like that's, like, Russia is such a different sounding word than Russia. Russia sounds so much more gentle, you could say. Maybe gentle's not the right word. But Russia is just so harsh compared. So maybe Anatolia and Anatolia, maybe they're both technically correct. I'm using Anatolia, I think, from how the History of Byzantium author, the podcast for the History of Byzantium, I am trying to say Anatolia like he does. I might just be misremembering it. He might say Anatolia, and I'm just quoting some other less reputable source, but I accidentally attributed it to him. I'm not really sure, honestly. But it kind of stuck with me as being an interesting thing because it's slightly different than the way we usually hear it, and it might be just as correct. Which I guess is the point of that story about Russia and Ukarane, as well as Russia and Ukraine. And, yeah. Is there any real reason to have that sort of, distinction and to, like, really draw attention to it? Arguably, no, not really. I mean, ultimately, yeah, who knows? I mean, we kind of get the point across. We know what country we're talking about. Russia, Ukraine, Anatolia, still technically correct. I guess you could make an argument for pronunciation in general as just being an overall positive thing. If everyone pronounces things right, it's just easier to understand them. However, that's kind of also an argument against accents, and I don't know. You know, that's really the sum of it. Is it's kind of just a pointless sort of argument to have, because I mean, even if we agree today that accents shouldn't be had, no one's going to just try to get rid of their accent. Maybe a few people do, but you know, that's on them. So that probably wasted a few minutes for no real reason. We are still occupying the Ottomans. That's pretty much almost entirely done, though. Hopefully I got you guys through the dull bits of that by just kind of rambling about pronunciation and then accents. I have a California accent, which to me doesn't sound like an accent at all, because, you know, that's how accents work. You don't really hear it when it's coming from yourself. Or maybe you do, and people from California are just that much more self-absorbed than the rest of the world that we just can't kind of tell that we have an accent. Who's to say? Probably people outside of California. At any rate, our armies are marching on through. And, yeah, the Ottomans really not in a position to resist. You notice they keep offering us peace deals. It's not going to be anything that we want. It'll just be Lebanon. And let's be honest, that's not enough. We didn't click so much Ottoman land to get nothing more than Lebanon. That wouldn't be worth it at all. It's that kind of thinking that made us almost not go to peace with the British for about 20 years longer than we needed to. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. We could have been at peace with the British for several years, but we waited and got the war score up some small amount. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and get behaviorism because it vaguely helps support the troops. And how's our army doing against these Ottoman forces? Decently well. They do have good generals, I'll grant them that. However, they have bad armies, and that's really... that kind of does more. Oh wait, we're not even holding an election. What are we doing? Oh my god, it's been almost an entire year and I've not held an election. Oh man, as I mentioned kind of in passing with the whole car broken down thing, that did get resolved. Clearly I'm just not operating at 100% right now. It has been a long day for me and I'm recording this near midnight, so I'll have this video up hopefully at 12, just, you know, a good 12 hours from now. I usually record the speed play either right after or in the morning. Hopefully I will be able to get that all done. I do have a class. However, if I'm able to record it before the class, then I'll be able to get the speed play out at 12 and this out at 12:30, which is what I really like to do. That's kind of the ideal. If, however, I don't manage to get this out early enough that I can basically get the speed play done, then I'll probably release this and then make the speed and then rush to make the speed play after my classes, so it'll come out a little bit later. But I mean, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. I'm starting to realize my plan had been for these to be a much more in-depth, more thought-out look into the gameplay, and the speed plays to just kind of be rushed versions. Or not rushed versions, I mean obviously sped-up versions. Rushed is such a much worse word for it. The speed plays were supposed to just be a quicker version of that sort of thing. I'm starting to realize that the way it's actually going, the speed plays sometimes touch on a lot of concepts that this doesn't, and this kind of does prod along through the actual mundane day-to-day stuff. However, speaking my thoughts out loud in these instances does really help, I think, me to come up with better topics for speed play. We're actually running along right now. However, we've fully occupied the Ottomans, and we're finishing the deoccupation of our territories. We have a lot of troops near Egypt, which is stellar because in 38 days we will be able to go to war with the Egyptians. We will just pick up these armies, roll them up against the Egyptian territories, and we'll also pluck up a couple additional armies. Come on, guys. Come on, there we go. We'll pluck those up, leave them at Suez, and then in those 30 days when those are all up, in fact, we'll just kind of carry them on until then, just to say that we have. We'll roll all these troops over to the area, and then we will stop the video for today. Now, unfortunately, that was slowed down at the last second. Let's take a look at our various diplomatic map mode things. We can start justifying a war against Austria or Denmark. We do need to take that one Danish province in Africa, so it would make the most sense to go to war with them. And we don't really have any troops against Austria, so we will justify a Place in the Sun campaign against the Danes. And we can now go to war with Egypt. Our armies are all arrayed, ready to go. So tomorrow, or actually this will come out Friday, so on Saturday, yeah, tomorrow for you guys watching, and for me as well, because it's after midnight, we will continue this. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.